Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Rockies Now podcast. We are a Colorado Rockies podcast. You can follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms at Rockies Now. Rockies Now on Instagram, Facebook, X, and Threads. I'm your host, Steven, along with co host Tom for the ride. Tom, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Thanksgiving is next week. We're looking forward to that. Looks like we might be getting some snow in Colorado, so that should be fun. I'm ready to bring in the Christmas season and general meetings or winter meetings, I should say, are coming up. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Oh yeah, it should be definitely. I think there's going to be quite a bit of activity on the free agent market as well as the trade market.
hmm And speaking of trade market and rumors, we're going to be talking about some rumors tonight. Uh, why not start off with the hottest guy on the list, Shohei Ohtani? I think I saw something I think was it today or yesterday on Twitter that the Cubs are really going after. Hello, Lux. In the chat, for those who are listening, we have a YouTube page. You can go in and chat with us and just say hi and listen to our podcast live. So, welcome in, Lux Ace. So, anyways, I saw an article talking about how the Cubs are really pushing after Shohei Ohtani, and they see, and I saw something else too, that the Dodgers and the Cubs are the top two favorites to get Shohei Ohtani, and of course we kind of talked about this last week and in the week before, I believe, about the possibilities of Ohtani, and of course in our predictions, I had Ohtani going to the Cubs, and you had uh, Ohtani going to the Dodgers. I personally think that it's a possibility. I mean, the Dodgers are kind of being a little bit quiet over the last week. There hasn't been a whole lot of rumors about the Dodgers. They've obviously been on Yamamoto and a couple other guys, but maybe there's a chance that Otani does go to the Cubs. But I just find it very interesting. But I do kind of like with the new manager of Craig Counsell in there as the manager. I kind of like the Cubs' chances of getting Otani here.
I do believe so because you don't. One thing's for sure, you don't hire a manager of Craig Counsell's caliber, especially to the highest contract ever given to a Major League Baseball manager, and not go get him a team that's worthy of contending for a World Series.
hmm
So
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me that it doesn't surprise me that Jed is obviously engaged with his agent. They're trying to gauge the situation, gauge what he's looking for. If he's looking for, the whole ramifications of what he's looking for. Is he looking for an opt out to reestablish himself with his pitching value when he pitches again, etc. But when it comes to the Otani news, the most interesting one that I saw, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago. There was a rumor that the Giants are going in on him. And it
hmm
kind of makes sense that they're in the rumor mill because last year they failed to capitalize on Judge and Correa, of course, with Correa's medicals not coming back 100%. So the Giants, I know with new manager Bob Melvin, they're definitely looking to start upgrading. They're definitely going to look to upgrade their team in any way possible they can. And why not bring a big star like Shohei to the Bay Area?
hmm Yeah, and another guy that's kind of been on the list is Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
We talked about him last week. We kind of predicted where we thought he was going to go, and a lot of people saying that the Braves are really interested in him, and I think that would
Mhm.
be kind of cool to see him go to Atlanta. Cross the National League East to a different team, and Phillies fans that might not be too happy about that, but I think a lot of Braves fans would be pretty pleased to have a pitcher like him on their team, and with a rotation that's already stacked with guys like Spencer Strider and Max Fried and just unbelievable bunch of young talent and a young lineup that's really good. It's just like that would be kind of interesting to see. It could happen. I mean, I do expect the Braves to be very heavy in the pitching
Mhm.
department just because you never know when injuries may arise, and hopefully the Braves can stay healthy next year and compete again, and I do expect them to do so. I think a lot of us do, and I think it'd be kind of cool to see Aaron Nola in Atlanta to pitch for the Braves and with a pitching staff like I mentioned that's pretty electric, arguably one of the best, if not the best, in baseball. And adding Aaron Nola would be just icing on top of the cake over there.
I think the Braves are going to be active on the pitching market. Their lineup is insane from top to bottom. I don't think they really have a weak point as far as they're concerned. If anything, they're also maybe want to upgrade their bench and their 40-man roster depth as well. But they're going to be active when it comes to pitching. I know because, and to me, I think it's for a specific. I think it's all they may push their chips all in because let's face it, this past season they were disappointing in the playoffs. They were the best team in baseballs in the regular season, and it's a big letdown that they got upset again by their division rival, the Philadelphia Phillies. So I know for a fact they feel like there's a feeling among the in that clubhouse, hey, we failed to live up to expectations in the postseason. So you could say they're going to come back next year with a chip on their shoulder, or come back, going full force and try to quote unquote finish the job. And one way you do that in the playoffs is have plenty of pitching depth,
Mhm.
or options, I should say, pitching options, just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. And then, another player that has really come up over the last week is Cody Bellinger.
Oh
The
boy.
Yankees, yeah, the Yankees, obviously, like we mentioned last week, his dad, Clay Bellinger, played for the Yankees, and
Hmm.
I think we both had him. Yeah, we both had him go to the Red Sox,
Yep.
just for fun. But I could see definitely, like I mentioned, like we mentioned last week, there's a real possibility he goes to the Yankees. Obviously, family history, but the Yankees, they need some outfield help. They need a left-handed bat, and I think Cody Bellinger's their guy, and I think they're going to push really hard for him. I know the Cubs really would like to see him come back, but it's unlikely that he's going to go back to Chicago and play with the Cubs. And I think with the front office there in New York, and I think with just the way things are going right now, uh, I think the Yankees are going to get him, and I think they're probably going to give him a pretty good sizable contract. I don't think it's going to be a 1 year or 2 year deal. It's not going to happen. We already know that he's going to be paid well wherever he lands, and I think New York is a realistic possibility. And I just, it would be kind of cool to see him go back to the Cubs, but I think New York is definitely, I think for them, this is their guy really this offseason. Of course, they're also in the pitching market, but I don't see the Yankees getting Otani, in my
No,
opinion.
no
Um,
way.
yeah, it's just not going to happen. I don't think they have necessarily I mean, they might have the money, but I just feel like they're going to go after like Yamamoto or maybe even Blake Snell. Aaron Nola, I've heard might be in the conversation as well, but it's just I feel like their guy is Cody Bellinger. They actually were interested in him last year, but the Yankees kind of didn't do much at last year during the offseason. As a matter of fact, they were one of the only teams that barely did anything last year during the offseason. But I think they're going to make some noise, and I think this is going to be their one of their big signing, if not the biggest signing for them this offseason, and that's potentially getting Cody Bellinger here. What do you think?
Well, I know for basically me living in Chicago, hearing all the reporting that's going on, Jesse Rogers of ESPN.com, who is very close to sources with the Cubs, he has heard plenty of talk that he's not going back to the Cubs. That's, I think, I'm not saying that's a 100% set in stone, but from what everyone's talking about, he's looking to go somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um, it would be interesting if he goes to New York, because I can't remember who brought this up. When you look at who the Yankees have in the outfield, it's the only notable names that they have are two men: Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. And Stanton is basically a DH at this point in his career. Um, so yeah, if there's any spot in their team they want to upgrade, it is the starting rotation. Because let's face it, Garrett Cole was easily the best pitcher in that rotation, and they do need to upgrade their outfield. And with a short porch in right field, I'm sure Cody Bellinger would love to would enjoy that. As you know, he does have a legacy connection with his father playing for the Yankees. I know that Scott Boras is going to try and play the best offer for Cody Bellinger as far as it goes.
Hmm.
So he is, and with Cody winning comeback player of the year, that's going to play in their favor. Personally, I'd like to see him go to Boston. I think it's a better fit.
Yeah.
No matter which one he goes, he will want to play the outfield. He's not looking to play at first base, but either way, neither team needs a first baseman at this point. So that will be interesting. I know the Giants are also rumored as well to be feeling out what the market, what his value, what his contract demands are at this point. So we'll see where he goes. I personally still think he's going to Boston, so we'll have to see how that shakes out. They both could use it, both, but it will. Last thing I'll say that just popped into my head: it would be interesting if he's played in the bigger, or the, I don't want to say the bigger, but the more notarized team in both LA and New York if he goes to the Yankees.
Hmm.
Or you could say
Look, yeah,
the number one team, or whatever you want to call it. No, not trying to be mean to Mets or Angel fans there.
yeah. Looking on the MLB.com MLB trade rumors page here, their article that they have, just I believe today, the Yankees and the Mets reportedly have talked to the Rays about Manuel Margot, who, I remember when he was with the Padres years ago, and
Mhm.
he wasn't like really a star player until like once he went to Tampa. And we all know how Tampa does their players. They have a very good analytical system. They do that with their pitchers, with their hitters, and somehow, some way, they make them into somewhat superstars. I'm not saying Margot's a superstar, but he's a very good player. And I think if the Rockies had room on their roster, I would like to get a guy like Manuel Margot. He would be kind of a fun Rocky, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Uh, Unfortunately, yeah, I'm crying right now. But anyways,
That's okay.
yeah, yeah. But the Mets, well, okay. So when we released our free agent predictions last week, I had a comment, and it was like, the Mets could be doing this. Honestly, I don't see the Mets being very active this offseason just because of Uncle Steve and what he said, and even Uncle Steve has said that they don't intend on spending a whole lot this offseason. They're actually going to cut back on spending this offseason just because of what happened, and they're still paying for Max Scherzer and Verlander, I believe, right now. So
Yes.
and so they're not in a good situation right now, and they wouldn't necessarily be rebuilding. I do expect them to sign a couple people just to kind of keep, because obviously you kind of have to, especially in that market with that fan base. The Mets fans, they wouldn't be super pleased of uh, you know, uh, not doing much. And honestly, nobody wants really that to happen, right? And so I do expect the Mets to be somewhat active, but I don't think they're going to be going after some of these big players. Margot, I could see it could happen. I mean, the Mets are talking to him, but I feel like it's more going to be like maybe a West Coast team. I could see the Angels because, of course, we kind of briefly talked about this last week when we were kind of finishing up the episode. We didn't talk much about, the Angels. We talked a little bit about them, but, big congratulations to Ron Washington over there. I don't know if you watched the video, but man, like his speech made me want to run through a brick wall. It just, how he wants to completely run the West. It was unbelievable. I really hope the Angels do that. It's just the ownership, man. The ownership's got to do something, and hopefully, and I'm glad that they're being serious about this. But it's just, I want to see the Angels win. As a Rockies fan, I want to see the Angels win, and it's just one of those things that I would like to see. But I'd like to see the Angels kind of go out for him, but I don't know. Manuel Margot is an interesting player, but I think most likely I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out west somewhere, maybe LA to the Angels, or I don't know, maybe Texas could find a spot for him.
Honestly, I knew Ron Washington to be quite a leader and coach. If that speech that he gave doesn't get that clubhouse fired up, I don't know what will.
Hmm.
Um, and for any of our listeners who listens, there is a video from the 2019 spring training where Bill Ripken on MLB Network interviews Ron Washington, and Ron Washington shows Bill, with the help of Ozzy Albies and another one of their infielders at the time, some help on how he does his short infield drills and how he can get his infielders to perfect the last hop,
Hmm.
which is actually genius. Which is actually pretty genius. You can go on to YouTube and watch it. It's on there on MLB's official page. But I gotta tell you, from what guys, previous players who have played for him, whether it's Freddie Freeman or even AJ Przinsky, who's on the Fair Territory podcast, who played for him in Texas, he is one of the most serious but fun managers to play for that AJ says he's ever played for. And I guess that's a good reason because they went to won back to back American League pennants. It's great that he's gotten one. It just amazes me it's taken this long for him to get another managerial opportunity. Um, Again, I hope that clubhouse is fired up to play for him. Um, I'm not 100% certain Shohei's going to go back because of Ron Washington, but go back to the Angels. But either way, I would say the Angels are in good hands. But the biggest problem for them is when you have an owner who is as overly involved as Artie Moreno. That's not necessarily always a good thing because you hire baseball people to run your team for you, and some owners just try to micromanage, and that's never a recipe for success.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that goes. But again, Washington is a great hire. He's got quite the challenge ahead of him. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they go, because I don't see Texas getting any worse. I see them getting better. Houston, they're not. It's going to be interesting to see because they got some of their veterans coming up close to free agency, like Altuve and Bregman. And the Mariners, I could see them being, as you and I have talked about, they could be very active and getting better. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ron Washington does with as a skipper for the Angels. Yep, that's going to be. We'll see.
Mhm.
But it is a but it is a fantastic hire.
Yeah, for sure. One more rumor that I'm looking at right here. We talked about how the Giants are being pretty active so far as the offseason begins and we start getting ready for the winter meetings. The Giants are pretty interested in Matt Chapman, third baseman, who previously played for Bob Melvin with the A's. And we'll get to the A's in a second. But, the Giants, like you talked about, Tom, I mean, the Giants, they might be making big money this offseason or spending big money, I should say, this offseason. And um, I think Matt Chapman, it would be, kind of cool because I mean, Matt Chapman, Californian, played in El Toro High School in California. And by the way, he was teammates with Nolan Arenado. And so it would be kind of cool to see Bob Melvin and Matt Chapman reunite
Mhm.
in California, there in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of Giants fans would be pretty excited to see Matt Chapman, who is a platinum Gold Glove winner, and he's pretty good defensively.
Agreed. Matt Chapman, aside from Nolan Arenado, I think is the second best defensive third baseman in baseball. I mean,
Oh,
I
mhm.
mean that's arbitrary considering Nolan is starting to get more into the advanced ages, but that's just a good point. I never really thought of it that way because Bob Melvin did round out some of his old Oakland A's coaching staff, such as Matt Williams. He is now back as the bench coach, and I believe he's going to be coaching third base as well. No, I think he's going to be the infield coach and the third base coach as well. The bench coach, I believe, is I don't want to get this wrong here. Just a moment.
You're good.
I keep forgetting.
Yeah, they made a bunch of like
A lot.
few
It was a
moves.
lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot of coaching moves.
Hmm. Is
Oh
this
yeah,
guy?
Ryan Christensen. That's who he
Yep.
hired.
Hmm.
Yes. But the point is, yeah, Bob Melvin has definitely bring back most of his Oakland A's coaching staff, and yeah, it would be a good idea to reunite him with Matt Chapman again. That would solidify that hot corner for a number of years. They do need a little bit more defense upgrade defensively on that side of the infield with former Gold Glove winner Brendan Crawford officially leaving and retiring.
Hmm.
So yeah, he's definitely got his work cut out for him because of course he's staying in the division, the NL West. But the Padres, they're going to be slashing payroll. The Dodgers are the Dodgers, of course. Haha. And the Diamondbacks, I think they can only get better from here. And us Rockies, we're trying to creep up and find our identity and find our place in the division. So
Hmm.
it's a challenging situation for any new manager stepping in. So we'll see how that goes. One thing is they do need some, I guess you could say, some star power because I think they're lacking that a little bit.
Yeah, and talking about the Dodgers, man, like every single morning you see a
Oh
rumor
boy.
about this guy going to the Dodgers. It's like who isn't interested in going to the Dodgers? It's just like,
Yeah.
oh man, story gets old. But anyways, one story that is unfortunately not very old. It just came out today. Tough for baseball. And first off, I want to say uh, I want to apologize to all Oakland Athletics fans. This morning, the owners of baseball decided that, or voted, I should say, for the Oakland Athletics team to be moved to Las Vegas. Uh, Owner John Fisher had some words to say, and we won't talk about it much tonight. But all I have to say is that Oakland A's fans, they deserve better than this. Baseball fans, they deserve better, and John Fisher should be ashamed of himself. And I don't know how he has a job in baseball, but for some reason he's still in the game. And listen, I really hope that the A's find success in Vegas. I really do, but I don't expect that to happen with the ownership and the way that he runs the team. And the way he talked to the fans today was basically a slap in the face to the culture, to the fan base of Oakland, and not a good situation for a lot of people. it doesn't not only doesn't, put a good light on the athletics, but it doesn't put good light on baseball as a whole, and, not a good day. Not a good day at all.
I don't just feel bad for Oakland A's fans, I feel bad for Oakland sports fans in general, and I say that
Yeah,
because not only do they could they potentially lose the A's, they already lost the Raiders
yeah.
to Vegas, same town. Now, just to be clear to our listeners on the process, this is just the approval for the Oakland A's to explore relocation to Las Vegas or any other town. This doesn't just because this isn't the tell all be all. They do have that lot of land, but they have to get, but from my understanding how the process goes, they still have to get the construction visits, the details, the
Yeah.
approval for the land, the permits, all that. There's so much more for the A's to even start putting the first to lay the first brick that needs to
Mhm.
be done. But anyway, we're not going to spend too much time on that. We'll talk about that another time when this starts to gain traction. But John Fisher, I mean, come on, man. It's just
You can't be saying that. You just
it
don't
just
say that, you
this
know?
this is again, I thought that this guy is easily in the bottom of not just baseball owners, but all of sports owners. He's down there with Mark Davis, in my opinion. So
Mhm.
honestly, Oakland, good riddance. You got rid of two just
Yep.
terrible, terrible individuals in Mark Davis and John Fisher, two of which didn't actually earn their fortunes. They
Mhm.
inherited most of it. So you guys lost just you could say two rich boys who inherited their family and inherited
Yeah.
their family's money. The bottom line is I don't real quick about Vegas. I don't think the just like how Vegas hasn't really fully accepted the Raiders because people say, well, they accepted the Knights. Well, because the Knights are an expansion franchise.
Yeah.
That's their baby. Fans are going to
Right.
accept a team that is the started in their city. So, and John Fisher, if people really believe this guy when he said this morning, I am going to say he is going to spend payroll appropriately, which means he's going to increase payroll to support a winning team. That's blasphemous. You had plenty of
Yeah.
opportunities to do it in Oakland. You
Mhm.
let Matt Chapman walk. You got rid of Marcus Semien. You got rid of Chris Bassett. And the list goes on of players that you traded away that you could have kept to keep your team competitive. People who believe that are just clearly clueless. This guy is not going to. Again, I wish the players who play for him the best of luck, but some dark days could be ahead for this franchise. And again, the people of Oakland, I feel so sorry for you guys that you now have lost your last sports team,
Mhm.
professional sports team. I feel so bad for you guys. So please,
Yeah.
my my condolences to you guys as sports fans. I hope there's brighter days ahead. Maybe you might get an expansion team and you might get a better owner. So look at that. There could be a silver lining for you guys.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Knights, Golden Knights, great organization, by the way, and
Mhm.
yeah, like, people say, listen, people like, John Fisher was like, "Yeah, Las Vegas, they were looking forward to this." They weren't looking forward to the A's coming here. They were looking forward to expansion team. There's a
Yeah.
difference, and, Vegas, they want a basketball team, I think, and that's great. They can get that expansion, and I was more than happy for a team to go to Las Vegas, just not the A's, because that city is a great sports city. I mean,
Mhm.
come on, but they don't deserve the A's. They don't deserve the ownership. And like I mentioned, again, we don't want to, get deep on this, but it's just like I again, I really hope the Athletics find success there, but I don't see it coming. Not until he's out of there, and I don't think it's happening anytime soon. Unfortunately, the way things are going, and it just it puts a black eye on Major League Baseball. Bad for the branding, bad for the sport. But hey, somebody I think it was this. I was listening to Fair Territory today, and
Mhm.
Eric Kratz, they were talking about it, and there's and they were talking to I think a San Francisco writer, but they were talking about expansion, and is it possible the expansion team does go to Oakland with Rob Manfred? Probably not, but hey, you never know. But I think if you're looking at expansion, you're probably looking at Nashville as one of them. That's probably the number one place now with Las Vegas not officially getting a team, but we'll see. Because not only that, but I think there has to be that like teacher voting thing that has
Mhm.
to go down. And I know, and here's an interesting thing too, is that teachers there in Las Vegas, or at least in the state, they don't want the team. They don't want the A's. They
No.
want an expansion team, and because they want to spend the money on education, which is exactly what they should do. But it's just, it's a bad situation over there again. Condolences, prayers go out to all those A's fans, and again, I hope you find success in Vegas, but I just don't think it's going to happen with John Fisher over there
Uh,
running the show. And it really is just like I said, it puts a black eye on everybody. And it just me as a Rockies fan, and it just makes Dick. Like, listen, I know Dick Monfort's not a perfect owner, but it just kind of helps me feel better. But it's just like, man, it's if if I was an Oakland A's fan, I'd be devastated. Like, mention the Raiders, and it's just like they didn't give a full effort. The front office, the ownership didn't give any effort at all to improve on both sides, the Raiders and the Athletics, to improve where they played. Obviously, the Raiders, they moved out, but again, you look over there in Las Vegas, yeah, they have pretty good crowds, but half the stadium are opposing team fans. Same thing in
Or
Same thing in Los Angeles with the Chargers, and the Rams. Like, I personally, of course, we're going to kind of get into football here, but you know, uh, I think the Chargers should have stayed in San Diego, but ownership also stadium situations. But thankfully, as Rockets fans, we don't really have to worry about that because Coors
Mhm.
Field is arguably the best ballpark in baseball, and it's kind of hard to believe. I think it's like the third oldest ballpark in the National League, something like that. So I don't know. It's just it's a messy situation.
No, and, yeah, what was he saying? But yeah, for the Raiders, yeah, a lot of away fans, and pretty much from my understanding, all the Raiders fans that attend their home games are fans coming from Oakland, from
Yeah.
Oakland. And Lux, thank you so much. Yeah, Matt Olson, that's a big name, I forgot.
Yep.
That's a big name they traded away, so thank you for that. I appreciate Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead.
it's no, yeah, it's just it's unfortunate, but again, I to the fans of Oakland, I think you may have brighter days. Hey, you could still be an expansion candidate. I think along with Montreal, Charlotte, Nashville, maybe Portland, Oregon, but we'll just have to wait and see. First, they got from how it is, in order for them to first even think about expansion, they got to get these relocations settled first.
And of course, with Tampa, they have their new
Mhm.
stadium coming in, which, some people argue that the location might not be the greatest, but hey, at least they're gonna have a better stadium than they are right now. However, they're like, I will say this as a nostalgic kind of feeling. I kind of like the Trop for some reason, but I do agree it does need to be upgraded because I've seen some videos and it's not very
Mhm.
pleasant.
Plus, those
But
bullpens need to be moved
right, yeah,
off the foul lines.
I think that's the only I think that I might be mistaken, but I think that's the only team or the only place in baseball that still has the bullpens on the side because I remember AT&T Park, now Oracle Park, they used to have that the bullpen on the side, and then they kind of built in the bullpen in San Francisco out in center field. So, but I don't know, it's just kind of nostalgic. But yes, Tampa, they need a new stadium, and I've seen some pictures. It looks pretty good, but it's just like I hear a lot of people saying, or a lot of race fans saying, and actually, I think Lewis, who was on here a few weeks ago from Blake
Yep.
Street Banner, he's a race, or he lives in the Tampa Bay area, and he was talking about. I remember he was tweeting out saying that it's very hard for him to go to the games in Tampa because it's just like it's across the bay. He has to drive like
Mhm.
several miles just to get to the game, and yeah. And listen, I hopefully they find an issue to where the traffic won't be bad and people from that area can enjoy watching some games. And I think hopefully that works, but we'll see. But moving on to our next segment, the Rockies made some moves just the other day because of the Rule 5 draft deadline. Players have to basically bring up or call up, per se, some players that are not on the roster to avoid them from being taken in the Rule 5 draft, which is, I think, Tom illustrated last week how, like, you have this draft. If you don't protect these players, they will go into this draft to where any
Mhm.
team in baseball can really pick them up and add them to their major league roster. And by the way, if you pick up a player in the Rule 5 draft, you have to keep them on your roster for the
Mhm.
entire MLB season, or they will return back to the original club they were taken from. So the Rockies, they selected the contracts of infielder Adele Amador, who is currently the number one Rockies prospect, outfielder Yankel Fernandez, who is the number two prospect, and then right-handed pitchers Angel Shavili, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and then Juan
I think that's it.
Shavili, yeah, and then Juan Mejia, who I believe he pitched in the Arizona Fall League and did pretty well.
Mhm.
Amador, 20 years old, was signed by the Rockies as a non-drafted international free agent on July 2nd, 2019, in 69 total games in 2023 between the Arizona Complex League, High A Spokane, and Double A Hartford. He slashed 287, 380, 495 with 12 home runs, 46 RBIs, 15 stolen bases over his three professional seasons from 2021 to 2023. The San Diego Dominican Republic native has slashed 292, 401, 461 with 31 home runs, 127 RBIs, excuse me, 153 walks and 133 strikeouts. So he had more walks than strikeouts in his career. That's pretty impressive. 51 stolen bases and 231 total games. And he currently ranks as the Rockies' top prospect and a 21st overall prospect, according to MLB.com. So having Adil Amador on the 40-man roster doesn't guarantee he will be seen in 2024 on the Rockies. See the potential second baseman for the Rockies up here.
Yeah, once I found out he was Rule 5 draft eligible, it was a no-brainer. They were gonna add
Yeah.
him. You can't lose somebody like that, especially the worst part would be if you lose him to a division rival like the Dodgers, but I digress. Anyway,
Mhm.
no, of course, the organization is high on this young man. There's no question he has the skills. He is progressing fairly nicely, and they want to protect him. And of course, Fernandez the same way. Um, you know, you and I believe talked about this a couple episodes ago as far as where we see the progression of some of these guys, and we could see Amador possibly being ready by 2025. And
Mhm.
Fernandez, I think is a little further behind him, but we could see him 2025, 2026. But those two guys, they have them protected for a reason. They're going to stay on the 40-man roster for the next for however, I guess, hopefully not long, but however much more time it takes for them to get to the major leagues. And like I said, how Brendan Rodgers does this year could potentially determine the appropriate path for Amador moving forward. So we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out this season.
Mhm. Yeah, and, for the other guys and, by the way, I just wanna give a huge shout out to our friends at Blake Street Banner. They do a much better job than us at, like, doing the minor league stuff because they really focus on the minor league stuff, so big shout out to them. Go check them out on YouTube, on Instagram, Twitter. Great follow there, great guys over there as well. They've shouted us out a few times, so thank you for that. So go check them out and kind of, like, look at some of their stuff that they have on some of these guys that the Rockies, brought onto the, 40-man roster. Yeah, like, we talked about some of these guys, and, it's exciting to see that these guys are finally on the roster because I remember, it wasn't too long ago that Fernandez and Amador were like basically draftees or, like low A ball, rookie ball. And now they're already just like a step or two away from making their big league debut. So that's pretty exciting to see. I believe, I forget, there was I think, what was it? Aaron Gordon? I think it was Tanner Gordon who the Rockies got last year. I think he was unprotected. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody picks him up because I know he came over, I believe, from the Braves? Yeah, he came over from the
Mhm.
Braves, and, I know he was one of the players I noticed that he was unprotected, so I'm interested to see what happens there. Again, like, not every team is very extremely active in the Rule 5 draft. It's not like, oh, you're required to take somebody. Some teams can pass, but I think it's like I said, it's a prime opportunity for teams can pick up, players and add them to your roster, but, the Rockies really like the guys that they left. I looked at the list of names, and really the guys that the Rockies did not protect were not really MLB ready guys or guys that were in AAA ready to get called up, except maybe Tanner Gordon. But I'm interested to see what happens. Again, the Rule 5 draft I believe is next month, right around the winter meeting. So I'm
Mhm.
interested to see what transpires there. And then one thing that is kind of coming up in a few weeks, and it's hard to believe actually, just think about it now. I mean, we're only a week away from Thanksgiving, which means that winter meetings is like just a few weeks away, is the lottery draft. And I'm excited for that because we'll be able to finally see what pick the Rockies will June. And the Rockies have a pretty good chance. Actually, they're tied with the Athletics and the Royals for the number one overall pick. And so, if the Rockies can get that number one overall pick, that would be pretty sweet. Looking at like just some of the draft guys, I mean, it changes from time to time, and we kind of really don't know. But from what I've heard, it sounds like this year's or next year, I should say, excuse me, next year's draft class should be pretty impressive. I'm seeing a lot of high school players, but I think like we've seen the past couple years, and I think we've mentioned this many times before, but like the Rockies, they want to go after more of college players. And however, when it comes to um, the top few guys, right? You want to pick the best player available, and but also too, you want to pick a guy that's healthy. He doesn't have injury history, and It's going to be interesting to see what the Rockies do, but I do expect them to go college route, just in, kind of like we predicted this year with how they got Chase Dolander and most of their draft picks. As a matter of fact, I don't think the Rockies drafted one single high schooler. I think it was all college this year. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they do, but I do expect the Rockies do to go college route this, or I should say next year's draft. But that's coming up, and then of course winter meetings, and that's really when we kind of expect the moves to start happening, because over the last few weeks we haven't really seen any big, if at all, we haven't really seen any free agency signings at all, and I think we're just waiting for the winter meetings to start happening. But for those who are listening, I think it's some of our listeners might have heard of DNVR, who they cover the Rockies. They are a Denver-based company, sports company. They have their own bar. Shout out to them as well. Patrick Lyons, he runs the show over there along with Susie Hunter. They do an excellent job over there. But
Steven, you cut out. You're on mute.
there we go. Uh, a year ago, like I was talking about, a year ago, the Rockies made a trade. They got Nolan Jones from the Guardians for Juan Brito,
Mhm.
and uh, it's just like maybe the Rockies will be active before the winter meetings, because we've seen that before. So I'm interested to see what happens there. Maybe the Rockies will be active, but like we mentioned earlier, with the way that, like, and we've talked about this like the last week and the weeks before that, to do much this offseason unless if they make some trades they might do that, but, really, I think the roster, the way things are going, it looks like next year is gonna be, more of a year, to where the Rockies kinda, stick with the roster that they have with the young guys.
Yeah, if anything, excuse me, they'll add some pitching depth because as we saw, they had quite a bit of injuries. They're going to need as many as you can. As this famous saying goes, you can never have too many arms. Well, they're going to have to stockpile arms because you never know. Hopefully, they're blessed with better health than they did last year in 2023, but you can never predict that. As far as the position players go, as you and I have talked about, they're basically, I think, not going to stand pat. Maybe they'll add a bench piece here and there, somebody in AAA they can call up in case of an injury or lack of performance, or for whatever reason they want to change up, shake things up. But pretty much the core is going to stay the same. It's going to be another year of hopefully certain players such as Chris Bryant staying healthy and playing a full season. Brendan
Mhm.
Rodgers the same. Nolan Jones and Ezekiel Tovar getting a shot to have their sophomore campaign and try and improve on their rookie campaign. Same thing with Bretton Doyle, who is coming off a fantastic win as a Gold Glover. Yeah, and also we'll see how the playing time and at bats are divvied up to give to other guys such as Elias Montero, Hunter Goodman. How is Drew Romo going to progress down in triple? Personally, I think he's going to be with AAA Albuquerque. That's my opinion. Where he's going to break camp with the team. He won't break camp with the team. He'll break to go to Albuquerque.
Mhm.
It's just going to be another year of Bud Black and the coaches trying to help figure out, as well as Bill Schmidt in the front office, evaluate and mold this core into hopefully a finished product that they can add the finishing touches to creating a contending roster after this season. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully that's where they are at the end of the season.
And as we move into our last segment of the podcast, uh, we're going to talk about some breaking news tonight out of Major League Baseball with the awards coming out. We got the MVP awards. Of course, the other day we had the Cy Young awards. Blake Snell won the Cy Young award. Not a big surprise there. From the San Diego Padres, I believe that's his second career Cy Young
Yes,
award.
yes,
And then,
it's a
yep,
second. Yes.
yeah, and then Garrett Cole, no big surprise. He was
Mhm.
arguably, if not the best pitcher in baseball this year. Unbelievable year. However, the Yankees did not make the playoffs. But great seasons for them. And then, of course, tonight we had the MVP awards announcement. Like the first one, the National League, that was one that kind of went season long. There was like a lot of predictions how Freddie Freeman was going to be in the mix. Mookie Betts, Corbin Carroll was obviously in the mix because of how great of a year he did and how and especially in the playoffs, he was unbelievable. Especially in the World Series where he really came on and started doing his thing. But really, it came down to the biggest player for the Braves, and that was Acuna. And because I remember there was like a big debate, Mookie Betts or Acuna, and I think it was in September when we played the Braves at Coors Field. I was like, it's got to go to Acuna. Listen, like we played the Dodgers a lot, and I don't like the Dodgers, but it's just like Acuna, man. Like with the record that he did with stolen bases, it's just unbelievable. And this guy, this guy is really, really young. It's very impressive of what he's been able to do, a franchise altering player, and he's going to be there for a long time. And and it's just unfortunate for him because he hasn't been able to win a World Series, or at least he won the World Series in 2021, but he was injured, obviously. But I would love to see Acuna like win a World Series again, but this time he would be playing and not injured. But ultimately, it went to Acuna. So happy for him, such a great player. And then for the American League, it was pretty much unanimous. It was or anonymous, I should say. It was Shohei Otani winning that, and it was great to see that his dog was there with them when they announced the award. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was also, Acuna, 70 stolen bases here. Another one, just to kinda, under the radar guy who was right behind him, I make sure it's Esteury Ruiz of the Oakland A's had 67, so he just missed the 70, stolen base mark. There were
Mm,
a lot of stolen bases this year. Corbin Carroll had 54, Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals had 49. So definitely, you could say there was some more refined strategy as far as the bigger bases and the number of times you can throw over with the pitch clock as well. So I can definitely see. It's good to see base runners taking advantage of that because I think stolen bases is quite a impressive thing if you can get as many as such. But no, as far as these two, to me, it was a no-brainer. I know Mookie Betts is kind of creeping up there, right behind Acuna, but with the fact that he hit as many home runs as he did and stole as many bases as he did in one single season, you have to give it to him. Not to
mhm,
mention he had a 337 batting average and he drove in over 100 runs. And he was they were not to mention that his teammates benefited from Matt Olson to Ozzie Albies and Austin Riley. Even Michael Harris benefited from that because he plays defense right next to Acuna in the outfield. It was an impressive season so really for Acuna. You couldn't say much. He is one of the best players in the world. He's one of the stars of the game. And Shohei Otani, I mean, what more can I say? Even though he got limited towards the end of the season pitching because of his elbow, the man is just incredible. I know generational talent is tossed around a lot. He truly is a unicorn.
mhm,
He is the best player in the world, and it will be very interesting to see where he goes, what team he goes to. How many rings does he win in his career? How many more MVP awards does he win in his career? Because I do believe, all things considered, think he keeps on the right track and stays healthy. You know, knock on wood there. I believe firmly he is going to be going to Cooperstown someday, and
Yeah.
he will be ranked among the legends of the game.
Mhm. Yeah, that Braves lineup is so good. I mean, it's just unbelievable top down what they've been able to do. Of course, this year with the number of wins, unfortunately, not beating the Phillies in the playoffs. But I mean, man, it's just like that's a scary lineup. It's like
Mhm.
like the Dodgers this year, they had a bunch of veterans in there, but I mean, that was arguably one of the best, if not the best lineup I've ever seen in baseball. It's so scary. I mean, I was terrified when they came here to Coors Field, and of course they swept us. But yeah, I mean, it's, with Acuna, you have like with the guys that they have, they just don't have a 3 or 4-headed monster. They have like a 11, 10, 9, 11 like headed monster. And of course we mentioned earlier when we were talking about Aaron Nola in the Braves and all that. And it's just like that team is so darn good.
Mhm.
And I again, I wouldn't be shocked if they go for another World Series ring in the next few years. Unfortunately, just they haven't been able to beat the Phillies. That's one step that they have to do, is to beat the Phillies there. But man, they're so good. Um, One thing I actually one thing I did wanna mention is I don't think we mentioned it last week because, of course, when the finalists were coming out for the, National League Rookie of the Year voting, yeah, I don't think we mentioned this.
Mhm.
So they had the Rookie of the Year voting, and by the way, obviously, no big surprise, Corbin Carroll ran away with that award, in the National League, and, Gunnar Henderson won it for the Orioles in the American League side. He's gonna be a bright young player as well, same thing with, Carroll, but Nolan Jones of the Rockies did not make the top 3, and, it kinda surprised me, because of how good Nolan was, and listen, I know some people say, "Well, he didn't play a full season, he only played, like, 120 games," or something like that, where Outman played 100 and, 50 some games, but still, it's mighty impressive to look at the stats and see that Nolan arguably had much better numbers than Outman and played less than Outman did this year. That should give him merit to at least be in the 3rd spot rather than Outman, and I'm not saying that Outman was bad. No, Outman was great this year. Well, at least in some of the numbers, he was pretty good. But looking at the numbers, Nolan Jones was better than Outman, and even some of the Reds players like Spencer Steer and some of those guys, they kinda deserve to be right behind Nolan Jones. I almost said Nolan Arenado. But they deserve to be kinda, like, up there as well, but I really don't get why they put James Outman there at 3rd. And I think a lot of it has to do is because of the logo on the cap. Very much a big market team, and I understand with the Kodai Senga and the Corbin Carroll placement, but I just don't get Nolan Jones not being in the top 3. I mean, it's just the way that Nolan had the season, and he made some Rockies records this year, and arguably, if he had the second half, like, I mean, if he played in the first half like he did in the second half, Nolan Jones would probably be an all-star, and it's unfortunate to see that, but, I mean, maybe we'll see him, have his revenge year in 2024 and kinda get into the MVP conversation there, but I don't know, a part of me feels like Nolan kinda got, bounced from the Rookie of the Year finalist voting. I think you're on mute. Hold on.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I
Oh, you're
was
good.
on mute. My
Okay.
apologies.
Oh,
So
you're good.
anyway, as I was saying, real quick, that was purely political. It was like as you said about the logo on the baseball cap. If you
Yeah.
look at Baseball Reference, James Outman, 3.3 WAR in 151 games played. Nolan Jones, 4.3 WAR in 106 games played. Nolan Jones played about 45 games less, and he was worth almost a full win more than Outman was.
Mhm.
Imagine if Nolan Jones played 151 games.
Yeah.
Just to our listeners and anybody who hears my voice, let that resonate and sit there for just a minute, especially given that Outman played for a contending team where he was surrounded by quality bats in the lineup from top to bottom. I'm not saying that the Rockies don't have any quality bats others in their lineup, but comparison of the two lineups when you got the NL West winning Dodgers versus the last place Rockies who lost 100 over 100 games,
Mhm.
Nolan Jones really had no protection, serious protection like Outman did in the lineup. So
Yeah.
let that resonate there. It was a pure political thing. Nolan Jones should have at least finished third. Corbin Carroll was the easy favorite there. He should won. Kodai Sayenga
Mhm.
definitely earned the number 2 spot, but Nolan should have been third. But um, either way, the Dodgers once again did disappointed. Even they were the number 1 seed in the National League, they disappointed again. So, oh, sorry, number 2 seed. Excuse me, Braves are
Mhm.
number 1.
Mhm.
Um, Dodgers once again, the only World Series they have since 1988 is the shortened 2020 season. Still a World Series nonetheless, but can't pull it out in 162 games. So until you do that, you're still gonna have that little asterisk there, guys. So
Mickey Mouse
uh,
World Series.
you guys can spend as much money as you want. You can sign Shohei, but if you do, you better win it all because quite frankly, if you don't, then not only is Shohei going to be the best player in the world going to be displeased, your fans are going to really seriously might start rioting. Because
Yeah.
if I was a Dodger fan and you sign guys like Freeman, and now Shohei, and you have all this high payroll, and you because winning the NL West for 10 out of 11 years is great, but if you only got one ring in those 11 years, then that's a bit of a problem there.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what counts? The ring. What's all that? What's the one thing that matters? The ring on the finger. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking at the like Stat Head Baseball, which is a great page, I found that out
Mhm.
like just recently, and I was like, hey,
Mm.
I found these stats, and actually I put it on Twitter when it came out, and got some likes from that. So to any of those who are listening, thank you if you follow our Twitter page and like that. So thank you for that. Yeah, batting average, Nolan clearly beats him 297 versus 248. And then OPS plus 138 for Nolan,
Mhm.
112 for Outman. OPS 931 for Nolan, 790. I mean, some of these numbers are so blindsided for Nolan. It's just like I like
The big one for me is the slugging, 437
yeah,
to
yeah.
542. Again, course
Yeah.
field effect aside regardless, but
Right,
yeah.
yeah, and then not only that, but I got the games. I actually counted more games than I should have. Nolan only played in 106 games, which is
Mhm.
shocking, and he was able
And
to nearly beat him in a home. He was only 3 away from home runs
yep.
and was only 8 behind in RBI. That's incredible, and see, like, I feeling a little bit better now, but still, I will still stand by this. Nolan was straight up robbed because it's just like you cannot almost put a better season when a guy basically makes his debut in late May, almost June, and really puts up the season. It's extremely hard to do. And I did see like I think I saw the voting numbers, and Nolan barely missed third, but still, like he definitely deserves that third place spot. And
Mhm.
yeah, there's arguments that Spencer Steer and Matt McLean could have been in that third or fourth spot. I
Sure.
agree, but it just Nolan he that was his spot.
Especially considering, yeah, it's sorry, he was not I wanna say he wasn't on anybody's radar as far as to be have a breakout season, but again, he's there needs to be something said for when you perform well on a contending team and when you perform well on a non-contending team.
Hmm.
Um, when it takes a lot of moxie to get back up every day and go to the ballpark and continue to prepare, work hard, and prepare to and go back out there to play a baseball game when you know there's a lower probability than most to win that game tonight. Not to say they don't that the Rockies didn't have a winning mentality. Let's try and win this baseball game. They prepared to win every single game, but it's just comparison to the Dodgers, who had a stronger roster. They had a higher probability of winning each night.
Yeah.
So
One thing for sure is that James Outman will not be getting a Christmas card from Nolan Jones this offseason. That's for sure.
I don't think so. He might get a congratulations that they run into each other for.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe. Well,
I like
Corbin
yeah.
Carroll definitely will.
I'd like to see a WWE fight between Nolan Jones and Outman. I believe Nolan Jones would probably win that. Maybe, I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
Nolan Jones, I believe, is the bigger man. So
that's and the taller man as well. So that
yeah.
he has that. So that's for that's for certain. Um,
I know that Dodger fans will come at us and say, "Well, guess what? You guys finished last place." I say, "Yeah, that's true, but we're rebuilding, and if you guys want,
yeah.
are
Well,
also,
also,
but
yeah. Well, also too, the Dodgers and the Rockies ended up at the end of the season with 0 playoff wins. So
they
kind
had
of
yeah,
kind of
correct, the
same.
same number of playoff wins."
Yeah. Well, I think that yeah, I think that will. I mean, what we
They might wanna worry about their own problems. They got bigger problems than trying
yeah.
to talk you might not wanna waste your time talking down to us. You guys got bigger problems.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see what I mean, Nolan Jones next year, watch out. I mean, there's always that season or that player that always, that usually sometimes has their, sophomore slumps, but really hopefully knocking on wood we don't see that from Nolan, but with what we saw this year, I think we're going to see a lot of Nolan Jones in some headlines coming up in the future for Major League Baseball and the Rockies. Um, but yeah, it's just, Nolan Jones, he definitely, I think, had a shot to win that award, and I think he definitely deserves some recognition in that. And it's just kind of hard to believe that there were actually people that were like, "Who's Nolan Jones? We never heard of this guy." I'm like, "Are you serious?" But
Uh,
yeah,
oh, one more thing. Hopefully next year, potential base runners and base stealers, be careful when the ball goes to Nolan Jones in the
oh
outfield.
yeah,
Well, you guys better start paying attention to that part.
hmm because you're gonna get gunned down by the Jonesy in left field because people still haven't learned you don't run on Nolan Jones or Brenton Doyle.
He may be a left fielder, but don't test that arm, please.
Mm-mm.
It's
Don't. Yeah.
just ask Ronald Acuna. He got thrown out at home.
Yeah. Don't test that arm. Anyway, that will conclude this episode of the Rockies Now podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, follow, rate, and review all of our social media pages. We love hearing from all of our wonderful listeners. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. And as always, go Rockies.